Okay, so welcome to this presentation on running drills in football. My name's Tony Tompos and I'm the Senior Academy Physiotherapist at Notts County Football Club. I've been at the club for just over a year now, and what we tend to do at the club is regular CPD presentations in-house and obviously external ones as well. We try and use the day before a game, the afternoon before a game, and the morning of matches as our CPD. And this is a presentation I gave to the sports medicine team on Friday night, just prior to the Mansfield match. And Johnny, the head of medicine, has asked me to do a bit of a narration over the PowerPoint so we can get it out onto YouTube and obviously kind of promote the department as a forward-thinking kind of sports medicine department dedicated to CPD. And in the last 12 months, I've had a ridiculous amount of CPD and learning occurring during that time. I think it's about kind of getting other people involved with that now, whether it be other clubs, private practitioners, different professions, sports scientists, strength conditioners, and we want to make a kind of national network really, so we can feed off each other's thoughts and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, moving on, we are going to talk a little about the rationale for running drills in football. I've used running drills for the last maybe 6 months, but really worked hard on it during the off season when I had a long-term injury with one of our players. My background is in running as well, and triathlon, so I've taken the kind of running lead in the department in terms of running CPD, and that's why I'm doing this today. So what we'll look to start with is obviously the rationale for running drills to optimise running performance. Now I should state at this point that I did actually produce a bit of a blog a couple of months ago on the science of running part 1, and if you look in the bottom right hand corner, the website link for that is just there, so that's sportsmedplus.com. If you just type in Tony Tompos science of running Sportsmed Plus, I'm sure you'll find it quite easily, and that just gives more of an in-depth background of kind of the anatomy of running, biomechanics of running, and there's a lot more research and evidence in that blog, because running drills, as you're probably aware, there isn't a lot of evidence for it. But have a look at that first. Maybe pause this and go back and just spend 10-15 minutes having a quick read of that, just to give you a bit of a background, because this kind of follows on nicely from that. And then, yeah, so rationale. So running is a skill. I don't think there's a real debate in that. Now, I know some people will state that people find their optimum kind of running gait and they self-optimize for running, and that negatives against kind of attempting to change running gait is obviously an acute decrease in running economy, so that you actually become a worse runner acutely following kind of gait re-education, gait retraining. But running as a skill is actually rarely taught. Now, if we look at professional runners, so Mo Farah, the Brownlee brothers, those guys, they do not run poorly. You can tell the kind of upright, forward lean posture, really high knee drive, landing on the mid and forefoot, massive hip extension. There's no crazy twisting at the torso. They're not slouched at the hips. They've got nice tall hips, nice long necks, always focused running forwards. And you'll never see a kind of bad runner at the front of a race, if that makes sense. Is that the right thing to say? I suppose you could, because they're winning the race, but in terms of analysis, if you look at the running and their economy or efficiency, you might suggest that maybe they're not as efficient as they are. And running as a skill is rarely taught during football practice. So I've trained in football teams from academy to semi-professional for over 10 years, and I've been involved for the last 5 years working as a physiotherapist. and it's very rarely taught, especially throughout the academy. Certainly, in the first team, I've never seen it actually taught as an actual skill, like passing a ball or crossing a ball or catching the ball for a goalkeeper. It's just not thought of as a skill. We spend so much time thinking about running prescriptions and how long should the run for? Should it be 8 minutes? Should it be 4 minutes? Should it be 5 minutes? And we'll give them the most brilliant thought out pre-season program and return to running in our rehabs. But are we actually looking at how they run? Can we actually make them more efficient or even quicker? Can we do that? And that's the kind of questions that I'm trying to propose in this presentation. And running is the most popular sport in the world. Most active people run as part of their sport, or whether they do it as running recreationally or in races, whatever. But like I say, it's very rarely taught as a skill, and that's why I've kind of brought this skill-based coaching into the footballers, because I get to work with under-18 footballers every single day, and I've usually got a caseload of at least 2 or 3 injuries at any one time. I also do all the team warm-ups, so I'm also able to kind of input in that first 15-20 minutes anything I want, really. But the kind of running drills that I'm talking about today are more for the injured lads who I get to spend a lot more time with. So I might have somebody with an ankle injury, a hamstring injury, or I know I'm going to spend the next 4 to 6 weeks with. And in that 4 to 6 weeks, they can't do what they normally do, which is football. So what I'm going to try and do is make them as strong, as fast, as fit, but also as efficient or economical as I can. So running is a skill. So very briefly, we'll just touch on kind of types of foot strike. So we know that we've got our heel strikers, we know that we've got midfoot strikers, and we know that we've got forefoot strikers. This slow-mo video shows it kind of well. It's not amazing, but you can see it from obviously the side-on view. And what we'll see during the presentation is the difference between kind of running foot strikes in football. Now, this presentation isn't just on you should change from a heel strike to a midfoot strike. It's not actually based on that. In terms of running analysis, we look at everything. So we'll look at the torso, we'll look at the head, we'll look at the arms, look at the hips, we'll look at the knee, and then we'll look at the foot. But just very briefly, that's why I mentioned the blog earlier, so you can go and look at how we analyse our runners. We want to look at the type foot strike that the athlete's got. And the reason for this is there is much more evidence than these two guys stating this. But this presentation got thrown together in a couple of days, and this isn't the bulk of it. It's mostly about the drills, but I need to give a bit of background first. So forefoot midfoot strike allows a much greater use of elastic energy storage and return. Now that Ettimer 96 paper, it's a very difficult paper to read, but what they're suggesting is that you kind of save about 30% of energy from your Achilles tendon in total during running. If you're a mid or a forefoot striker, so if you think about how the foot rolls along on the ground when you heel strike and the amount of time you spend doing that, and the fact that when you heel strike, your calf's already in a stretch position, whereas when you're in a forefoot midfoot position, foot's plantar flex, so you get a rapid stretch of the Achilles tendon, a rapid contraction. I'm sure you'll all have heard the kind of analogy of the elastic band. So if you imagine your Achilles tendon as an elastic band, and you think of it of a nice tight elastic band, and when you stretch it quickly and you release it quickly, how far that tight, quickly released elastic band would go, you'd hope it'd go quite far. And then you imagine a kind of long, saggy elastic band which you pull back and you hold for a little bit longer, and then you release it. The chances are it's not going to fly as far, and that's kind of similar to the Achilles tendon on your foot strike. So when we're heel striking, we're already in a stretched position. We've then got to contact the ground with our heel first, rolling over our foot onto our toes, and then obviously toe off. And you can see Hayes and Kaplan state that you spend more time on the ground with a heel strike. So forefoot and midfoot strike, you spend less time on the ground. So with a mid and forefoot strike, we're actually landing on our midfoot or forefoot. Our heel then touches the ground, so we get a rapid stretch and a rapid contraction back up the ground. So the idea is that forefoot and midfoot strike allows you to become more efficient in terms of elastic energy storage and return. There are other things you can look at. You can look at the knee. So when you heel strike, you tend to see the knee in a more extended position, like we can see this guy at the back. Please ignore the green tick and the red cross, because to be honest, this is just an image I got off Google and then I've annotated a little, but the green and the red tick and cross were already on there, which I couldn't delete. At least the guy is running, so we shouldn't be saying this is a bad way of running. We're just looking to optimise running, that's all. I'm not saying this guy is wrong and he shouldn't be doing this. What we would like to achieve with our players is to look more like the guy in front, where everything is moving forwards, so all his forces are moving forward. Ground contact time is less, ground reaction forces are moving forward quickly, rather than kind of breaking forces with our heel in a knee extended position, loading that knee more than the ankle. So running is a skill. This I've cut and pasted from my blog. So we can see that in a recent Japanese study on 283 elite marathon runners, it's found that 75% of these runners were heel strikers at the midway point of a half marathon. However, when the authors of this study looked at the results of the race, they found that the top 50 results of that race, the number of midfoot runners was 38% compared to 25%. Which obviously significantly more, maybe not so in terms of the amount of numbers, but as a percentage it certainly is. This showed that there was a tendency for more midfoot and forefoot strikers to be faster. So in this study they also looked at ground contact time and found that the mid and forefoot runners were spending less time on the ground, which is what I mentioned previously, Hasegawa. I think I found this study in Steve Magnus's book, The Science of Running, which will be a reference at the end, because it's a brilliant book on running and the science of running, and I kind of read that book front page to last page on holiday last year, which the missus wasn't very happy about, but it filled me with knowledge, so I'm glad I did it. And what Steve Magnus kind of talks about is that ideally the foot strike would be mid or forefoot underneath the knee and close to the centre of gravity. This will decrease the amount of ground contact time and ground reaction force. And your man there is a famous marathon runner. He's obviously not that famous because I don't know his name, but he tends to run all his marathons barefoot. And if we think about kind of how we evolved as human beings, we evolved because we became the dominant species, not evolved. We became the dominant species because we are the greatest runners on the planet. It might not be the quickest, but we can certainly last the longest. And we're able to outrun our prey, and we have done for millions of years. And we never used to wear big Nike Air Maxes or Adidas. I don't even know what they're called, the soft cushiony ones which give you an incredible amount of floatiness and bounciness. We didn't have them big 1-inch heels on our heels. So that's a big change in the last 50 to 60 years with the amount of money that's spent on running trainers. And I think the point I was trying to get across in my blog, where this picture comes from, is that it's been made easy for recreational runners and professional runners to heel strike, because we get these comfy trainers, and we're able to heel strike because it doesn't affect our heel. It's not painful at all. It feels nice. Whereas if you took your trainers off and you ran, like this guy does, he will 9 times out of 10 always run on his mid and forefoot, because it's quite painful to heel strike when you're running. And a very quick example of this is if you want to do this, then do it. If not, then just imagine do it. So if you take your shoes off and you stand up and you kind of bounce on your toes nice and light, double foot, 1 foot, whichever you want, feel how light it is and stretching of your Achilles tendon, you'll always land on your forefoot and midfoot. Now try doing the same on your heel and landing on your heel. You can see that you get no kind of elastic energy return. You get no bounciness. It's quite painful on your heel. And that's the point I'm trying to make in terms of midfoot and forefoot striking compared to heel striking. So, moving on again. We've got a couple of images here. We've got a 400-metre runner in the top right-hand corner. We'll just concentrate on the right-hand side for now. I think this guy's called Adam Kunkel. He's a 400-metre runner, and he was recently kind of found to be the perfect runner in a documentary on running. Now, I actually haven't seen the full documentary. I've only seen maybe 3 or 4 different clips, but they give a couple of really good slow-mo videos of this guy, and they talk about kind of how we evolved as humans and becoming the dominant species, blah, blah, blah. I will try and find the title of that documentary. It was on TV a couple of years ago, and now you have to pay like $15 to a Canadian TV company to get the DVD, apparently. And we can see that he's landing on his forefoot with his knee slightly bent. In the middle shot, his heel then strikes the ground. And then on toe off, his left knee is driving right up, his right hip is extending, his arms are at 90 degrees, his head and neck are nice and tall, he's focused, and that's what we're talking about in terms of running as a skill. And when we're talking about mid and forefoot, or let's say forefoot, we're not talking about running on your toes consecutively. We're talking about so forefoot striking, then letting your heel bounce and getting the use of that elastic energy recoil. So it's not just running on your toes, because that's quite painful on your calves after a while of doing that. Below that picture is Alistair and Johnny Brownlee, both incredible runners. I have no idea how they do it after 40 kilometres on the bike. This was just a training picture that they put on Twitter a few months ago, and I couldn't believe how good it looked, just in perfect synchrony, really. Kind of, again, heads focused, nice and tall, slight forward leaning posture, nice tall hips, high knee drive. Look like they're gonna land in a mid or forefoot position with the knee flexing, and obviously great hip extension as well. And then we've got a couple of videos which I took during our testing in fact it was only a week ago. If we just focus on the top guy first, you might be able to hear the noise, hopefully not. So if we just focus on the top guy, so this player, if we analyse his running through, we can see that he's overreaching every step. He's really stretching forwards. Now, please bear in mind, this is a 10-metre sprint. This maybe isn't his natural running style. Maybe he's trying to reach that 10-metre line as quickly as possible. But if we have a look at him, he's very flexed at the hips. His arms are kind of all over the shop. And the biggest thing is that his hips is so rotated, anterior rotated and flexed at the hips. Is not upright at all. And his feet are landing way outside his kind of base of support. Whereas we look at the image below and we look at this player, is very much more upright. He's nice and tall. There is a slight forward lean. His knees are a lot higher than the guys above. He's got good hip extension. His foot's landing under his centre of mass. And these are just two very quick examples. I haven't gone out to look for a bad runner, or an efficient runner, or a non-efficient runner. I've just looked at all the videos I took when the guys were doing the sprints, and it looked like the top guy didn't look as efficient as the guy at the bottom. In terms of sprint speed, these guys had a couple of milliseconds difference. I think the guy at the bottom was a little bit quicker, but that I wouldn't suggest that is anything to do with running style, because when we talk about running style and running gait, what I'm trying to get across is their efficiency. So how efficient are they at running? It's not over 10 meters, so to say. So, next slide. This was a bit of an intervention because this player had a long-term injury. He had a partial tear of his ACL, so we managed him conservatively, which is another blog and another kind of case study which we'll hopefully report on in the next few weeks as the player gets back to training. But if we play a couple of his videos, we can see that on the left hand side, if we ignore the runny ones for now, the one on the left hand side is just part of his kind of mid-stage rehab. So I think we were doing this at about maybe week 8 or week 10. And there we can see a couple of the running drills that we practice quite a lot. So I think he's doing marching there. So we had a couple of guys from Munster come in, and PJ Wilson and Aidan O'Connell, and they went through their return to running programme. And they stated that, well, if they can walk, then they can march, and I completely bought into that. So we did lots of marching, high knee drive, nice and tall, feet landing on his centre of mass, really quick with his feet as well, not spending a lot of time on the ground with his feet. We wanted him to just tap the ground, back, as many reps as possible. And we use the running drills, or we have used the running drills throughout his rehab. Initially it was just marching, but then we went on to kind of all the other variations, which we'll move on to in a minute. So if we look at the top video first, this is the player. It's maybe 9 months ago when he had a hamstring strain. I was looking at his running just to increase his speed, because although he's quite a fit lad, is one of the slowest, and as a centre forward you obviously need to be quick, so we wanted to look at if we can make him any quicker. In this video we can see that his arms aren't driving backwards, they're just kind of falling backwards. His knees don't come up very high, and again he's kind of really reaching forwards with that foot. He's not very... I struggle to say he's not upright completely, because he is a little upright. But if we look at the image below, which was again taken this week, he just looks a lot lighter on his feet. He is much taller. His arms are driving back. His foot's landing in a knee flex position under his centre of mass. He's not rotating at the torso like he is in the first clip. So if we look at the top again, you can pretty much see his whole chest there. When his stance is on his right, we can see his whole chest, whereas everything's very linear in the bottom image. So that intervention, that was obviously a combination of lots of strength conditioning. We spent very little time on kind of CV and the bike and stuff like that. We spent much more time on strength work during his rehab and kind of running mechanics as an adjunct to that, as well as his neuromuscular control, his functional core, his upper body strength, his obviously lower body strength, and his running drills were a kind of fundamental part of that in his macrocycle rehab plan.
Maybe it's magic, maybe it's make-believe. Maybe you had it all along, hidden up your sleeve. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're in between. Maybe there's something going on that you haven't seen. There's something sexy about the night when the sky is dark and the streets are bright. Alright, I wear just what I like, so I wear my sunglasses at night. They keep my eyes from blinding with all those diamonds shining. You'll never know just what I'm thinking or what I'm designing. Cause I always got a plan in the works. Sleight of hand, understand how it works. Okay, it ain't a trick, I'm just that slick. Grab a chick and then we disappear quick.
And this is what it looked like in his rehab plan. So we had a skipping stream, an ankle stream, and a running air stream. And this was the kind of, these were the exercises that the Munster guys who I mentioned earlier, when they came over to do our Nottingham Sports and Exercise Medicine conference at the end of the season, they spoke very passionately about how they implement this with their players, and I took that on board with this player throughout the off season during his rehab. So he obviously started with the march, and we spent a lot of time just marching first, and then we went on to skipping and double skipping and bounding, and he never actually was able to achieve 2-1-2s, or he hasn't yet, because it is quite a difficult exercise in terms of coordination. And then running airs with stick overhead, running airs with band resistance, and this was part of his program. What I've done from there is I've I think that's them done. Obviously, all them videos, hopefully, whenever I link this up, how we'll do it, I'm not sure, because it's going to go on as a video, as a PowerPoint with my narration. Hopefully, we'll be able to see all them clips through on the video. So, running is a skill, and it should be treated as such. This was a little quote used by Andrew Franklin Miller's article in, I think it was the Aspetar journal, which was something like, throw the needles away and teach your players to run, I think it was. And running is a skill which can be taught, similar to that of kicking a football or serving a tennis ball, and when technique is suboptimal, coaching cues could and should be indicated. And I completely agree with that sentiment, as you're probably aware. So this is just a nice video to finish off, and this just shows British triathletes from a couple of years ago, and it just shows Malcolm Brown going through a couple of the exercises I've spoke about, and it kind of just brings together what I've been saying. Now, I know this is triathlon, it's a completely different sport, but he's looking for efficiency in his athletes, and that's what he speaks about. So we'll just have a listen to this for the next couple of minutes.
Near the front as fast as I can, and then I hold on. Normally after 4k, I settle down to a pace and hold on as hard as best as I can until the last kind of k, and then I assess the situation again. And if there's people around me, I normally try and split up the race then, or if not, I'll leave it to a sprint finish and give it everything I've got.
A lot of aerobic activity tends to bias you to running short. So instead of being tall, tend to be sinking. In order to run efficiently, you need good posture. It's very rare that you see people winning Olympic gold medals in any running race from 100 meters to the marathon unless they have some certain fundamentals about them. Think about having a long neck, you will be tall. And of course, the tendency when you get off the bike is not to be tall. The problem often with people who run with their hips low is that their stride length is shorter than it needs to be. And you need an optimum stride length, reasonably long, not enormously long, reasonably long, but not inhibited by the previous events you've done. So, in other words, think about having tall hips, head up. Don't sacrifice your posture for speed. So if you feel that you're losing the height because you're trying to run fast, slow down and get the height. A lot of people tend to strike on their heels, and that tends to take a long time then for you to be able to roll off and move to the next strike. The best athletes in the world tend to have very fast feet. They're not on the ground for very long. And some of the slowest athletes I've ever seen in my life, including myself, spend a lot of time on the ground. There is a tendency for endurance athletes to have low knees, and one of the drills that we'll demonstrate in a minute, which you'll do, you'll see is about getting the knees higher, because it tends to give you a bit of a longer stride. And endurance gradually gets you, less flexibility, less mobility. Stride length gets shorter and shorter and shorter, even during a race sometimes. And what you're looking at, and you'll be doing this, is to have a movement where you hold it at the top with a right angle at the knee and a right angle at the ankle. And just relaxed running arms, basically.
Try and slow it down a little bit. Then it's harder.
Yes, try to spend 2 seconds in the up position.
That's good.
The next development of this, once you've mastered that, and you will very quickly, is to push up with a standing heel, which requires more balance, more demanding of you, but is actually more like the pattern that you'll have when you run. I think until you've mastered it, you shouldn't move on it, and twice a week is ideal.
Some of you are a bit tense in the face, just relax a bit.
That's excellent, well done. And you will see Usain Bolt snapping down.
See where the foot hits the ground first as well, is that forefoot, isn't it? There.
Excellent. Stop. Excellent, well done.
British Triathlon, proudly partnered by GE.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that very short video by Malcolm Brown and obviously Johnny Brownlee there. I think it just brings into focus some of the things I've been speaking about, and maybe I've spoken about them things because I've seen the video as well. I've certainly taken a couple of them initial running drills as part of my rehab program.
The run that runs the business end of triathlon, it's where you win or lose the race. I like to get out very hard, make other people hurt sometimes. Other times, you want to leave it to the last kilometre and really win the race there.
You need to go fast at the start for as long as you can. You need to stay with the group. You need to be focused. You need a fast sprint at the end.
Races normally are sorted out in the first kind of 3 or 4k, so I try and run near the front as fast as I can. And then I hold on, normally after 4k, I settle down to a pace and hold on as hard as best as I can until the last kind of k, and then I assess the situation again. And if there's people around me, I normally try and split up the race then, or if not, I'll leave it to a sprint finish and give it everything I've got.
A lot of aerobic activity tends to bias you to running short. So instead of being tall, tend to be sinking. In order to run efficiently, you need good posture. It's very rare that you see people winning Olympic gold medals in any running race from 100 meters to a marathon unless they have some certain fundamentals about them. Think about having a long neck, you will be tall, and of course the tendency when you get off the bike is not to be tall. The problem often with people who run with their hips low is that their stride length is shorter than it needs to be, and you need an optimum stride length. Reasonably long, not enormously long, reasonably long, but not inhibited by the previous events you've done. So in other words, think about having tall hips, head up. Don't sacrifice your posture for speed. So if you feel that you're losing the height because you're trying to run fast, slow down and get the height. A lot of people tend to strike on their heels, and that tends to take a long time then for you to be able to roll off and move to the next strike. The best athletes in the world tend to have very fast feet. They're not on the ground for very long, and some of the slowest athletes I've ever seen in my life, including myself, spend a lot of time on the ground. There is a tendency for endurance athletes to have low knees, and one of the drills that we'll demonstrate in a minute, which you'll do, you'll see is about getting the knees higher, because it tends to give you a bit of a longer stride, and endurance gradually gets you, less flexibility, less mobility. Stride length gets shorter and shorter and shorter, even during a race sometimes. And what you're looking at, and you'll be doing this, is to have a movement where you hold it at the top with a right angle at the knee and a right angle at the ankle, and just relaxed running arms basically.
Try and slow it down a little bit. Then it's harder.
Yes, try to spend 2 seconds in the up position.
That's good.
The next development of this, once you've mastered that, and you will very quickly, is to push up with a standing heel, which requires more balance, more demanding of you, but is actually more like the pattern that you'll have when you run. I think until you've mastered it, you shouldn't move on it, and twice a week is ideal.
Some of you are a bit tense in the face, just relax a bit.
That's excellent, well done. And you will see Usain Bolt snapping down.
See where the foot hits the ground first as well, is that forefoot, isn't it? There.
Excellent. Stop, excellent, well done.
British Triathlon, proudly partnered by GE. Imagination at work.
And that's it to finish, really. There's a couple of references there. There's my running blog again, which I did a couple of months ago. It was a lecture that I did for University of Nottingham and University of Birmingham. I've tried to turn it into a readable blog. Obviously, a couple of the websites that I like visiting are the Running Physio, so Tom Goom's website and his Twitter feed, and Kinetic Revolution, James Dunn, his running drills and exercise are both brilliant. And there's a podcast there as well. I think that's I can't remember which one it is now. I think it's the one with Tom Goom, where he's having a chat about running and all that sort of stuff. And there's the references that I've mentioned during the presentation. And in terms of books, if you ever get a chance to buy a running book, or you want to buy a running book, then The Science of Running by Steve Magnus comes highly recommended for myself. I mean, I've read it before and I use it as a point of reference quite frequently whenever I'm looking at running CPD and things like that. And that's it for now, I think. We'll end it there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll be able to put more and more of these out in the coming weeks on different kind of subjects, and you won't have to listen to maybe my dulcet tones. Maybe you'll get to listen to Johnny Wilson or Becky Knight's views on their chosen subject. If you've any questions at all or comments, I'm completely open to criticism, and I 100% know I am not an expert in this field. I'm just trying to implement. I'm trying to get into the young lads that becoming a footballer it's not just playing football, it's about becoming an athlete, it's about the whole picture. Strength conditioning is massive at the club. I work with a great part-time S&C coach, and we work together to try and optimise their performance by however means necessary, making them stronger, making them quicker, making them efficient, making them fitter. But yeah, any questions or comments, we've got my Twitter handle is Tony Tompos PT, and then we've also got the new Notts County Sports Medicine, which is at NCFC_sportsmed, and you'll find all the links to kind of Facebook and videos of our kind of rehab plans, what we do on a day-to-day basis. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to any comments in the future. Cheers, guys. Bye. Of this. So this is our slow controlled march. So we're looking for nice alignment, nice posture, nice knee drive. And we're looking for balance as well and stability during that exercise.
Hold it for 2 seconds. Good, nice tall hips. Good. Just 90 degrees that hip. Good. Hold it for a bit longer. That's better. Good.
Heel raise. Again, we worked kind of over 10 metres. This was pitch side during a training session. As you can see, he's got a bandage on his hand, so he's actually non-contact training at the minute. You can see during the exercise that it's not actually that easy. It may look simple, but if you try it, it's not an easy exercise. And at this point, I actually wouldn't progress him. I would work quite extensively on this, because if he's struggling to single leg stance with a heel raise, then maybe he's not as efficient as we thought.
Good. Get your balance. Head up on that toe. Good. Slow as you can, slow as you like.
So this play did every single exercise for me. But you would think about progressions and regressions if they can't perform the exercise. And that's our match. I would want more kind of, I would want his arms driving back a little more there. I think he's been quite lazy with that exercise. If I can show it again, his arms aren't really driving back at 90 degrees. He's been quite lazy, and I should have picked that up. But he's landing under his centre of mass. He's getting a high knee drive. He's got a nice upright posture.
Good. That's it. Keep going. Nice and tall, nice and tall. Good. Nice and tall. That's it.
To dowel above head. Now I'm sure guys who have seen Franz Bosch work will know that he works extensively with, sorry, I shouldn't say extensively. He uses this as an exercise, and obviously you kind of lose your arms and you're bracing in your trunk a lot more.
Nice and tall. Good.
We've then progressed it a little further with a medicine ball above head. Now this starts to become quite challenging now, and he's kind of rushing through that. I would want him to go a little bit slower, but with quicker repetitions of his march there.
Right above your head. Good. Quick as you can. Quick feet. Quick feet.
More kind of hamstring toner drills, so we're kind of working our hamstring a little more. Now this is where I'm going to be kind of critical of myself, because I'm not as keen on these drills as I am the A drills.
Arms going as well. Arms driving. Nice and tall. Tall at the hips.
To be pouring down with your hamstring, if I'm being honest. I know a lot of runners use these B drills, and I've put it in as part of our running, but for me it's not a natural way for the
arms going. Nice and tall.
And them back, and this is the kind of one I mean, where we're pulling them back. He's still landing on his toes, he's still upright. It's still kind of a movement variation, and it keeps them interested, and it's a different drill.
Good. Keep going. Keep going. Good. Nice and high, landing on your toes.
Myself with, yeah. And again, we can progress that with the med ball. You can see he's not able to get as high as previous.
Nice and tall, and legs going up, higher, higher.
I think on this one I should have pulled him up again, because I would like them to be a lot more snappier, and I would want a lot more repetitions than what he's given me there. I would barely want him moving forwards, to be honest. He's moving forward maybe a yard each step. I would look to almost land in the same spot, maybe a couple of inches forwards.
Nice and tall, nice and tall.
exercise. Then got the double skip, which is just a progression of that. So again, we're just always looking at posture. We're always looking at kind of how high his knee can get. So we're working on hip mobility. We're working on that Achilles tendon, making it nice and stiff by obviously heel striking on the ground and rebounding back up. And yeah, that's it.
Nice and tall, nice and strong. Keep the arms driving back as well. Nice and tall, extend them elbows.
A go here. Be kind. But we can see, so we've got 2 hops on our right foot with our left knee driving. And I know it's extremely slow, but I'm a little older and not as quick. But that's the idea. Like I said, it requires quite a bit of coordination. And I'm only showing you my left side because I can't do that.
Yep.
And then these single knee drives and double knee drives, these are kind of what I'll do almost every other day, maybe in our team warm-ups as part of our kind of team prep. So this isn't just for the injured lads, this is just the running drill that we put in with the fit lads in our warm-ups. And it's just it's a nice one to kind of be prepped for running. We're getting everything we want. We're getting that forefoot strike, we're landing on our toes, we're getting that rebound off our Achilles tendon, we're getting a nice high knee drive. And obviously we would do that with our left leg.
Good, nice and high, good.
Got the double knee drive running airs. And again, because he's starting to fatigue a little, he's kind of rushing through it. But I would want him to be doing much more reps before he gets to them 10 metres. I would want him rebounding as quick as he can, but barely moving forwards. And I certainly would want his arms working a lot more than that.
Drive them arms. Nice and tall, nice and tall.
Of that exercise, so we can do our forwards and laterals. So we're still high knee drive, and we're moving lateral and forward and lateral again. And that's just another example of a progression of the double knee drive running airs.
Drive them arms nice and tall. Lateral. Get around the cone. Good. Keep going. Lateral again. And forwards. Perfect.
Progressions. So this is where it becomes quite difficult. As soon as you put a resistance band on these running drills, it becomes very challenging. And I'm barely putting any kind of tension through that TheraBand. It's very light.
Right above. Nice tall hips, nice and quick on the floor. Good. Keep going. Keep going. Nice and tall. Come on. Well done. Stopped it.
That's when I think it is. We've got the med ball, we've got the TheraBand. I think it's just forwards this, but he really starts to grimace here, and he's really struggling now. But these are the kind of high functioning drills that you can use with your injured players, and your fit ones if you've got time. Like I say, as a physio, I spend most of my time with the injured lads, but I do spend a bit of time with the fit lads. But I think these running drills are becoming a more important aspect of the players' rehab, because we know that they're able to run and they're able to tolerate the running.
Okay.